Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Last week, Patrice and I found out that our nephew, Ryan, had been arrested and was being held in the county jail. He was accused of stealing money from the ATM account of a friend and of stealing her possessions and pawning them for cash. That same day, his parents discovered that he'd been stealing money from their bank account. Had taken their ATM card and gone to several different locations and withdrew money without their knowledge, without their consent. There will likely be other accusations coming forward in the days ahead. His parents got that word just before they were about to leave their home in eastern Pennsylvania and drive here to Battle Creek for a long-anticipated vacation with us over the 4th of July holiday. Needless to say, they were deeply distressed by the news and agonized back and forth over whether or not to cancel their plans and stay home and be available to their son, or whether to just put some distance between all of the heartache and all of the turmoil that he had brought into their lives recently and try to have a brief respite, a time to relax and recover perspective. In the end, they decided to go forward with their plans, and they came out and stayed with us. But their hearts were heavy. And we spent a lot of time talking about what to do. Ryan is a beautiful person, full of enthusiasm and vitality. You can feel the energy in the room bump up when he enters and begins engaging people. Ryan is a sensitive, caring, good-hearted person whose laughter always came easy, and whose innate curiosity compelled him to explore the people and the places and the circumstances of his life more deeply than most. He loves sports. In the breast pocket of my sport coat, I have a collector's card that he gave me of Andre Reed, a fellow Kutztown State College alumni who made it big. Went on to an all-star career as a wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, a team I loved to follow when I lived just down the thruway in Rochester, New York. Every time we got together, we would look forward to talking sports and to speculating about the prospects for the teams that we loved to follow. Ryan is a Penn State grad and is a deeply loyal Nittany Lion fan. Ryan was a broadcast journalism major at Penn State. And Patrice and I used to enjoy logging on to the internet and clicking on the connection with the campus radio station and listening to a program that Ryan and two of his buddies created called Under the Bleachers. On Sundays, when Penn State's football team was being carried on one of the national networks, we would turn on the game and turn off the sound and then log on to the school's radio station and listen to Ryan giving color commentary and play-by-play narration to the game that we were watching on television. We have always been proud of Ryan and of the things that he's done. His enthusiasm and his personability are the perfect combination for a promising career in broadcast journalism. When his first job, right out of college, fell apart, we wanted to support him and give him encouragement. He very quickly latched onto a grandiose scheme of traveling across the country and writing the great American novel and blogging on his experiences along the way on a website, but that project quickly veered off course. Plans kept changing, appointments got missed, details got fuzzier and fuzzier. We were supposed to be one of his stops during his trek through the Midwest, but he didn't show up. Not when we were expecting him anyway. When we finally heard from him, he told us that he was navigating without maps and had decided to explore a lot of back roads, and it was taking him longer than he anticipated. His explanations never really added up, and we would find ourselves shaking our heads a lot and shrugging our shoulders. When we talked to other family members, they too had noticed his erratic behavior, his late-night hyperactivity, his excessive alcohol consumption, his propensity for disappearing for days at a time and then suddenly showing up in some strange place without any good explanation for how he got there or what he was doing there. He made a lot of promises that he never kept. He disappointed a lot of people who were counting on him. He stopped being honest with others and probably with himself. We've all been holding Ryan in our prayers for a long time. None of us really sure what to do, how to be helpful, whether or not to intervene. When you love someone, you want to say yes to them. You want to give them your encouragement and your support. You want to celebrate their successes in life. We want the people we love to know that we believe in them, that that we have confidence in them, that we embrace their hopes and their aspirations. We want them to know that they can depend on our support. We want to say yes to the people we love, but sometimes love requires us to say no. Sometimes our failure to say no makes us complicit in their self-destructive behavior. Sometimes our failure to say no is really our way of saying, I give up. I no longer have confidence that you can attain the ideal that I hold for you. I no longer find you worthy of my effort to intervene by standing up for the good that I once saw in you. Saying no never feels good. It always feels harsh and angry and judgmental. It feels like we are rejecting the person. But sometimes saying no is the only way of redeeming a person. Sometimes saying no is the only way of saying yes to the good that we know dwells within a person. Sometimes no is the only way of calling someone back to their better self. To their true self. Back to the person that we admire and trust and love. Back to the embodiment of what is godly and sacred. In our text this morning, the psalmist gives us language for saying no. Not only to each other, but also to God. I cry aloud to God. Aloud to God, so that God might hear me. My soul refuses to be comforted. I think about God and I moan. I meditate and my spirit melts. There is no praise in that psalm. There are no words of affirmation or appreciation. There is only no. there's only the honest expression of the psalmist's bitter disappointment in God's failure to show up. And act like the God the psalmist believes in. Has God's steadfast love ceased forever? Are God's promises at an end for all time? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has God in anger shut up God's compassion? And I say, it is my grief that the right hand of God has turned. This is one of only two psalms of lament that don't end in assurance. Most of the laments include comforting words of promise as the psalmist recalls God's faithfulness in the past and holds on to the hope that God's faithfulness will return in the future, but not here. Not now. Not this time. This psalm ends without any assurance. That's the risk that we take when we say no to God. It may be that the God we have been holding in our prayers and in our hopes does not exist. Or it may be, as this psalmist speculates, that God has changed. Maybe God has given up. Maybe God's compassion has been withdrawn. Maybe the promises of old no longer apply. That's the risk that we take when we say no to God. When we refuse to accept the status quo, it is our way of saying yes to the God that we want to be in relationship with. It's a high-stakes gambit. By saying no to what is unacceptable, we are investing a deeper commitment, a deeper faith, a deeper allegiance to the God of our highest aspirations. No, God, this is not okay. God forbid that the one who inspired Hebrew slaves with the hopes of liberation and accompanied them through 40 years of wilderness wandering should turn a blind eye to the human trafficking taking place at the borders of our own country, where every year more than 17,000 vulnerable immigrants get trapped by those who take advantage of their undocumented status and hold them captive in sex trades and sweatshops and agricultural labor and domestic work with little pay and no benefits, no access to health care, no Social Security, no assurance of any retirement income. No, God. No. God forbid that the one who formed us all in God's own image, in whom there is neither Gentile nor Jew, male nor female, slave or free, God forbid that a black youth should die for being black in a white neighborhood, and that his family be unconsoled. No, God. No. God forbid that the one who sent Jesus into the world to be the Prince of Peace and forbid us from ever repaying evil with evil should quietly condone our involvement in a war with Afghanistan that is now about to conclude its 12th year, the longest war we have ever waged in our country's history. God forbid that the one who filled us with hopes of swords being beaten into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks should be all right with 100,000 Syrians dying in a war to end the oppressive regime of King Assad. Is the God who formed the heavens and the earth, the God whose glory is revealed in the beauty of creation, willing to stand by passively while we degrade this planet with our insatiable addiction to fossil fuels? Really? Will God remain silent while those whose greed for short-term profits blinds them to the long-term destructive consequences of their choices? No, God, no. In his book, Naked Spirituality, Brian McLaren gives us that one little word to hold on to. No is the word that he uses to summarize that spiritual practice that guides us through this season of spiritual perplexity. There are times when we must simply refuse to accept the status quo. Times when we cannot accommodate actions that we find to be intolerable. No is our way of saying yes to what is good and trustworthy and honorable. No is a spiritual practice that helps us hold on to our faith in the highest aspirations that we have for ourselves and for each other and for God, even when they are nowhere evident. Amen.